Welcome to the Roy Morgan Update. The latest Roy Morgan survey on voting intention for the first 3 weeks of June shows the ALP maintaining a commanding lead on 58%, down 0.5% from the month of May, well ahead of the Coalition on only 42% on a two-party preferred basis. That's virtually unchanged from the election winning month. The Labor primary vote was little changed at 37.5%, still well ahead of the Coalition on 31%, also unchanged. Support for the Greens was up 0.5% to 12%, and One Nation was unchanged at 6%. Support for independents and other parties was down 1% to 13.5%. There was another boost to government confidence, up 4.5 points since May to 101.5, with more Australians saying the country's going in the right direction, 43%, than the wrong direction, 41.5%. Now, this is the first time government confidence has been in positive territory, above 100, for well over 2 years. In fact, since February 2023. Clearly, government confidence depends on whether your side of politics is in power, and Roy Morgan data scientists analysed government confidence by party support, and a clear story emerges. Now, a large majority, 65.5% of ALP supporters, say the country's going in the right direction. That equates to a government confidence rating of 148. In contrast, only 21.5% of Coalition supporters say the country's going in the right direction, a government confidence rating of only 57, well into negative territory. Green supporters have a positive government confidence rating of 111.5. One Nation supporters are deeply unhappy, a massive 89% saying the country is going in the wrong direction, and that equates to a government confidence rating of only 19.5. Supporters of independents and other parties are slightly more pessimistic than optimistic, with a government confidence rating of 82.5. Now to the key weekly indicators. The latest ANZ Roy Morgan Consumer Confidence, based on interviews conducted throughout last week, increased 1.3 points to 86.7, rebounding from last week's fall of a similar magnitude. Driving consumer confidence higher over the last week was more confidence in buying intentions. That increased by a net 4 percentage points this week. Although still low, net buying intentions are now at their highest for over 3 years, since April 2022. A key driver of improved buyer sentiment is clearly the annual end of financial year sales, with Australians tipped to spend $10.5 billion in the sales. That's up around 400 million, or 3.9% on a year ago. And that's according to the Roy Morgan Australian Retailers Association sales forecasts. There was also good news on the inflation front this week, despite concerns about global energy supplies from the Middle East. ANZ Roy Morgan inflation expectations tend to move in the opposite direction to consumer confidence, and this week is no different. Inflation expectations dropped 0.2% to 4.7% this week. Australians now expect inflation of 4.7% over each of the next 2 years. That's a figure just below the long-term average of 4.8% for this measure over the last 15 years. And now, the battle between Uber and taxis. Roy Morgan's latest data shows that in early 2025, more than 7.4 million Australians, almost 1/3 of Australians, used Uber, while only 4.2 million, about 18%, used taxis. That's a gap of more than 3 million Australians in favour of Uber. Usage of Uber has surged since the end of the pandemic restrictions in the December quarter in 2022, increasing by 1.7 million, around 30%. Usage of taxis has declined over the same period, down 212,000, almost 5%. Even more striking is a comparison between usage of the two services today compared to before the pandemic, pre-pandemic levels in the late 2019. Since the September quarter 2019, usage of Uber has increased by over 2.1 million, more than 40%, while usage of taxis has dropped by more than 630,000, around 13%. One long-standing question Roy Morgan has asked Australians since the early 1980s is their attitude to marijuana. In your opinion, should the smoking of marijuana be made legal or remain illegal? Now, 48% of Australians support marijuana legalisation. That's up 15 percentage points over the past decade, from 33% in 2015. 41% now believe marijuana should remain illegal. That's down 15% since 2015, while 11% remain undecided. The latest figure reflects a decisive shift in national sentiment towards legalisation of marijuana. And that's a wrap. Thanks for your interest in Roy Morgan's latest results. For more detail on the topics covered in this video, head to the Roy Morgan website. I'll be back next week to bring you the latest results for consumer confidence, inflation expectations, and federal voting intention. Thanks for listening.